Newsflash: CNN has lost half their viewers in less than 2 years. In a last-ditch effort for survival, it appears that CNN has crossed the line from journalism to tabloid sensationalism. Such is the case with the recent Anderson Cooper 360 investigative report on a former Islamic PLO terrorist who converted to Christianity in the ways of the West. But instead of exposing current unreformed terrorists, CNN chose to blatantly smear and attack a reformed terrorist, reinforcing the cynical view that a growing number of people have that at CNN, no good deed goes unpunished. Walid shoebat assisted in the investigation by offering to give CNN his real name, since for security purposes he uses a pen name, along with passport records and a virtual treasure trove of information. But inexplicably, CNN chose not to accept that information. Instead, they proceeded with what amounted to a pseudo-investigation witch hunt. Let's examine some of their investigative and reporting techniques. CNN claimed they had asked several agencies about shoebat's past. But on Anderson Cooper 360, Drew Griffin, the same reporter who did the first hatchet job on Sarah Palin, never released any interviews with any official agency. No interviews with any police official, government officials, or any recorded calls or any memos or any email correspondence that validate any investigation ever took place with anyone. Unless this is done, CNN has no case. CNN even twisted Mr. shoebat's words. Listen to what shoebat really said.
His message before a largely positive crowd of cops and emergency responders at this South Dakota Homeland Security Conference: trust no Muslim, especially those who organize.
Wrong, CNN. Shoebat never said such a thing, or else CNN would have showed it. What Walid actually said was,
know your enemy. Know your enemy. All Islamist organizations in America should be the #1 enemy. All of them, the Islamist organizations.
Mr. shoebat said to know your enemy. All Islamists and not Islamic, as Drew Griffin claimed. When someone uses the word Islamist, this would point to Islamic fundamentalists. Yet CNN wants to paint Walid as a Muslim hater. CNN had further twists.
An ex-terrorist. It's Walid shoebat's claim to fame. A terrorist, a PLO member, who bombed a branch of an Israeli bank in Bethlehem Square, throwing a firebomb on the bank's roof.
Truth is, Mr. shoebat never made any claim that he threw a Molotov cocktail on a bank, which completely debunks Mr. Griffin's entire investigation. Why would anyone remember such a minor event 30 years later? Mr. shoebat had a real time bomb assembled by the notorious terrorist Mahmoud al-Mughrabi, whose account can be completely verified through United Nations reports and news agencies.
CNN's Jerusalem Bureau went to great lengths trying to verify shoebat's story, finding the general location where the branch of Bank Leumi once stood, but not finding anyone who could remember a bombing.
Not finding anyone who could remember a bombing? Wrong, CNN. The United Nations documented that between December 24th and 27th, there were 2 explosions in that area. Additionally, on December the 27th, 1977, the Jerusalem Post reported an explosion in Bethlehem, in Manger Square, near the Church of the Nativity. And again, according to a daily newspaper published in Tel Aviv, Israel, Yedioth Aharonot, on January the 2nd, 1978, an explosive charge went off outside the local courthouse. What is further damaging is that Walid sent all this documentation to CNN with an offer of witnesses who did remember the bombing. But when CNN realized that they did not have the hatchet story that they were so lusting after, what did they do? They stopped their correspondence.
There's another part of his story that doesn't check out. Shoebat says he was arrested and spent 2 weeks in an Israeli prison.
There's no record of you being in prison. I think there'd be at least an arrest record. They held you for 2 weeks. Would the United States know you were in prison if you were a U.S. citizen?
Tomorrow, how about me and you go to the Muscovy prison and extract the records? The records are there.
Okay.
Would you be willing to do so?
We did, and the Israeli detention center could find no record of detaining anyone with the name Walid shoebat.
Wrong again, CNN. Even if Mr. Griffin did check prison records, he was searching the wrong name. Had CNN examined the records that they were offered, it would have proved beyond doubt that Mr. Griffin made an error intentionally. When Mr. Shoebat was arrested, he turned in his U.S. passport and not his birth certificate or ID. His U.S. passport had a different last name. Mr. Shoebat was born in Bethlehem, and since his mother was a U.S. citizen, he was under her passport as a child. When he matured, he held his own passport, which used his mother's information and is not under the name Shoebat. Mr. Shoebat's imprisonment can easily be verified with a click of a mouse, since Mr. Griffin was not the only one investigating Mr. Shoebat's prison story. Journalist Eileen Fleming, who attempted to debunk Mr. Shoebat's account on an opednews.com story, had interviewed Shoebat's family and confirmed that Mr. Shoebat was indeed in prison. Fleming includes an interview with one of Walid's relatives, Gamal Yonis, who Fleming claims had checked his facts with other relatives of Walid. According to Yonis, quote, in 1976, his sister Mona was coming home from school with her friends and were stopped and beaten up by Israeli soldiers. They nearly broke Mona's back. This made Walid very angry, and shortly thereafter he attended his first demonstration against the occupation. In 1977, Walid was caught distributing Palestinian flags and was arrested and held for about 2 weeks in Moscovia prison until his mother went to the embassy and got him released. But when he was in jail, he met someone who invited him to join a group against Israel.
You obviously can see why people are critical of your claims. There's a whole lot of gaps in your story.
There's no gaps at all.
We don't have a bank bombing.
And we don't have a terrorist, because it turns out Walid Shoebat, even on his own admission, was never charged.
Wrong again, CNN. Mr. Shoebat was not in jail for his bombing operation, but rather for planning civil unrest, in which he was released without charge since the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem intervened in the case. He later joined a terror cell in Jerusalem. If Mr. Griffin was searching court cases and terrorism charges, he would not find anything. Yet Griffin talked about not finding court records regarding imprisonment for a terrorism case of a bombing operation in Bethlehem Manger Square. It wasn't Walid that put gaps in Walid's story. CNN simply did another hatchet job. Honest reporting or dishonest reporting? You decide.